It is almost guaranteed that the National Assembly and the Executive would bicker every year over the national budget. Now, this year has not been an exception, as the National Assembly is on the warpath with the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, over his utterances on the 2017 budget.
I want to put it clear, Mr. Speaker, that this House will not take it lightly with this kind of utterances. This House must not take it lightly with this kind of statements that is capable of really undermining our mandate and our constitutional integrity. This House should not take it lightly. The minister should be called to answer these charges of insult to the institution of the National Assembly.
It's daggers drawn against the executive as federal lawmakers are expressing displeasure over some utterances made by members of the executive. Representative Ado Dogowa and his colleagues in the House of Representatives are displeased that the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, says the National Assembly spokesmen displayed a stark and worrisome gap in their understanding of the workings of the budgetary process. The face-off between the National Assembly and Mr. Fashola is over the 2017 budget, with both sides firing accusations and counter-accusations. Mr. Fashola had complained recently that federal lawmakers reduced funds for some key projects for his ministry in the 2017 budget and allocated the money to some frivolous projects such as boreholes. Specifically, Mr. Fashola says the National Assembly tampered with budgetary allocations for the rehabilitation of a Lagos-Ibadan expressway, the Kano-Maiduguri Road, the Bodo-Boni Road, as well as the Second Niger Bridge and the Mambila Hydropower Project. The spokesmen of the Senate and the House of Representatives swiftly replied, accusing Mr. Fashola of spreading wrong information and half-truths. The Senate spokesman, Senator Aliyu Abdullahi, says, and I quote, Mr. Fashola did not give members of the public full details about the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, which has been on the private finance initiative from the beginning, because he would prefer an arrangement that allows the ministry to continue to award contracts and fund the project through government budgetary allocations at a time when the nation's revenue is dwindling and at an all-time low, end of quote. The Senate Appropriation Committee chairman is also coming down hard on Mr. Fashola.
Fashola should know that he's dealing with the National Assembly of the Republic of Nigeria. It's not Lagos State House of Assembly. If the job is too much for him because the ministry is too big, the ministry is comprising 3 ministries, works, housing, and power. Probably the job is too much for him. If he cannot adjust, then he should do the honorable thing. He should do the needful. But no amount of blackmail by him, no amount of propaganda by him or by his surrogates will stop this National Assembly from discharging its duties in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The face-off between the National Assembly and the Executive over the national budget is almost like clockwork. It is guaranteed to spring up every year. The question on the level of imputes by the National Assembly on the budget has not been resolved nearly 18 years after the return to democratic rule. Public analysts say the disagreement between both arms of government is costing the country a lot.
The 2017 budget has been signed in June, very late. And the acting president has also promised that the legislature will get the 2018 appropriation bill by October. Now, what is expected of the executive is to proceed expeditiously, process the monies, release them, and start implementation. And what is expected is also that they should have by now almost gotten ready the medium-term expenditure framework, give it to National Assembly, let them look at it before they proceed on their mid-term vacation. And then when they come back, so both the executive and legislature left what they should be doing at this critical point in time and spilling a lot of bile into the system. So you could very well be sure that this will affect the 2018 process if there's already a lot of bickering. And the kind of words I'm getting to hear from particularly the executive, the way they describe the legislature, is not done in any presidential system.
In the case of the controversy between the Minister of Works, Housing and Power and the National Assembly, I think, has powers to raise questions where it appears that there is an abuse of or sectional allocation of public funds. Now, what the National Assembly is saying in this specific case is it's a federal structure. You cannot appropriate in a way that is discriminatory and provokes anger across the country.
They propose ways of resolving this yearly problem.
What happens is that the two people are stiff-necked. Both the executive and the legislature, they are arrogant and stiff-necked. It's not a question of it is mine, it's my right. It is about the rights of Nigerian people. So all they need to do is to sit down and talk to each other, because none of them, the way the constitution stands today, can do it alone. You will always have this face-off, and it will not lead us to anywhere. We've been having this face-off since 1999.
Budget process where the executive sits with the legislature and agrees on projects way ahead. Every government has its projects. Every government has its program. And if you want to deliver on it, you've got to engage. I think that the legislature particularly has to develop the competence to manage the budget process. I think that there's a lot of failing on both sides, but the legislature has to develop a system, and that's why we have constantly advocated the existence of a National Assembly Budget and Research Office.
In the meantime, the House of Representatives has summoned the Works, Power and Housing Minister, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, over his comments on the National Assembly's alteration of the 2017 budget. The Senate is waiting for the conclusion of the engagement of the House of Representatives and Mr. Fashola before it takes the next step.